Good morning. How are you? क्या नाम है आपका? माँ? साई. I think after a couple of days you will be able to access some of the videos etc. on your portal. So don't hurry up. एक दो दिन का time दीजिए. Don't press them too much. एक दो दिन के बाद you can. I will announce in the class. After that, you can start looking into. The general practice is that whatever bigger kind of films are there, which I may not be able to do in the class, meaning, sometime more than 20, 25 minutes or so, I don't prefer to do them in the class. So 2-3 minutes I would try to air with you, and then rest of it you will do back home and you take a proper noting. And then in today's class we would be starting with where we have left in the last class, that was economic anthropology. Anji sir. हाँ, एक दो टर्म्स हैं जो with that we would with a couple of terms we would begin. I thought in the beginning of the week I would entertain you thoroughly. So 2 terms I will be doing with today, and then we will start with economic anthropology. One is सर थोड़ा सा जो टाइम टेबल आपको मिला था उसमें थोड़ी सी डेट्स की गड़बड़ थी. आई हैव मॉडिफाइड एंड आस्क्ड देम टू रीसेंड, सो यू कैन. मुझे लगा इस पे थोड़ी बात हो जाए, पॉलीएंड्री, एंड देन वी वुड कंटिन्यू विथ इकोनॉमिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी. You're all set, sir? You're all set? So I'm sure you would be able to make some sense from today onwards, if at all, last week was nonsensical enough. There were 2 meanings, I said, for the term integrationalism. In integrationalism, the first meaning we said was there are various branches or various subfields of anthropology where I spoke of something like those 4 branches, like biological, linguistic, socio-cultural, and archaeological. These are all interlinking ones. So this is actually an academic inquiry combining various subfields of the discipline. That is one meaning of integrationalism. The second meaning of integrationalism, as was given by Malinowski, was that different culture traits, you remember culture traits, right? Culture traits, different culture traits are interdependent. Different culture traits are interdependent, and they change whenever the other culture traits are changed. So a change in one culture trait would automatically result in the change in the other culture traits. You're all there, sir? You're all there? Give a good smile. Cheese. No? All of you? There's no smile is missing out there. So integrationalism, in the second sense, as was described by Malinowski, was whenever a change occurs in one culture trait, the change would automatically percolate into the other culture traits. So in that sense, whatever you take up in a culture, meaning, for example, you have economic subsistence, you have political systems, you have maybe the belief system, or maybe perhaps even the technology, the ecology. or for that matter, familial institutions, marital institutions, name it. I mean, all of them, they are linked to one another. You bring change in one, rest of the things automatically change. This concept is called integrationism. I wouldn't take you further on that. If I'm taking you further on that, I would be getting into several complex other theoretical perspectives, which I would want to do at a later point of time. Now my special interest is in polyandry. This word we have used earlier in the class, right? Polyandry. So what we do is, we will first have a look at small related terms of polyandry, and then we will see a small documentary. This is already known to us, है ना? This is already known to us. Look at your syllabus, chapter 2.3, paper 1, marriage. Read out the syllabus. Ready?
Marriage, definition and universality. Laws of marriage, heterogamy, exogamy, hypogamy, incest, dowry. Types of marriage, monogamy, polygamy, polyandry, group marriage.
ठीक है, thank you. So there are two terms in that chapter. People generally get confused between them, what to write when laws is given, when types is given. Keep in mind very clearly, when you say laws or rules or regulations, what it means is the laws tell us whom to marry. The laws tell us whom to marry. Meaning whether I can marry an individual within this particular group, or I should not, I cannot marry. I should marry somebody from outside, or there is a restriction that I should marry only in this group. Say for example, there's a caste, within the caste I have to marry. So you are actually telling me whom I should marry, whom I'm not supposed to marry. After having settled on that issue, whom to marry, whom not to marry, the second question here, the types talks about how many I can marry. How many I can marry. So first of all, you should know from which group I can. Once I finalize on the group, from within that group, how many I can marry. That is the difference between, because I see that even very, if I could call senior students, they also make a mistake in these questions in the exam. So you should have to clear that kind of a cloud there. Now, I would want to here focus on types of marriage, because I want to speak a bit about polyandry and then take you to economic anthropology. Now, read out, sir, in the types of marriage.
Types of marriage, monogamy, polygamy, polyandry, group marriage.
ठीक है. I'm interested in monogamy, polygamy, polyandry, or maybe here. These are the subtypes of it. Mono, as it says, one. Poly, many. An individual can marry many. Here, based on gender, you are trying to distinguish. I would talk about this first and then come here. Monogamy is an individual can have only one partner at a time. Definitions are very, very important, sir. You don't write it as a wife can marry only one husband. No. It's like neighbor's wife marrying neighbor's husband. No. Monogamy is at a point of time, an individual, that's very important. When I say an individual, it can be a male or a female. So, in monogamy, at a point of time, an individual can marry only one person. So, it can be this. So, you can very clearly say, a man and a lady wedded there. I mean, nobody else in the vicinity at a time. So, based on that, there are two types. Monogamy can be a lifetime monogamy or a serial monogamy. Lifetime monogamy or a serial monogamy. In lifetime monogamy, so one is wedded to two. Suppose one dies, throughout life she should be not marrying anybody, or if at all two dies, one cannot marry anybody else, or one and two, if they are divorced, even then they cannot. So better thing is be together because there's no other option there. This is lifetime monogamy. Serial monogamy is if any of these things happen subsequent to these events, the individual can marry somebody else, but then at any point of time, an individual should have only one partner. But then one after the other, one can have a number of them. So, looks beautiful. 1 and 2 married, a week passed by. Things still did not look rosy. But then at a point of time, you can have only one. Or in the other case, after the death, the individual can marry three. Or if one dies, she can marry the other. But then what is happening? At a point of time, one cannot have more than one mates. Are you there? Are the pictures clear? I say it again. There are two types, lifetime and serial. Lifetime is come what may, don't look at the others. Whether the partner is dead or alive or separated, one cannot indulge in a subsequent marriage. On the other hand, in the case of serial monogamy, an individual can be wedded to an individual and another individual one at a time. One at a time. But one can have a number of mates one after the other. One can have mates one after the other, but at a point of time, one can have only a single mate. So in this case, we started with 1 and 2. Divorced, both of them got into the other marriage. Then maybe perhaps, I was trying to show this one. So after divorce with him, she is getting into the other marriage. And then perhaps he's also getting into the other. But then at any point of time, you cannot have more than one mate there. I hope that is clear to you. Hanji sir. Lifetime is a very rarity, sir. Rarity because you can only look at maybe Lord Rama. Every woman wants to have Lord Rama, but then he is a monogamous person. He cannot be owned by everybody else, so kind of. That's a rarity. Generally, the Hindu Marriage Act talks about monogamy. It prescribes monogamy. But then we have a practice of serial monogamy even in the Hindu case. Generally? Age restriction. Okay.
At the age of 45, is it common? Does the age has to do anything?
No. These are once again, sir, culture specific. These are once again culture specific. I don't think. I'll tell you something like this. Look at chapter 11, paper 1. There is something called, can you read out? Can you read out? The third part there, the third part in chapter 11. A little louder, Dr. Saab. A little louder. Fertility, fecundity, all those stuff basically. So I think I can link that to fertility and fecundity. As long as you are fertile, I think you will be in a position to. So don't worry about it. So fertility is also a culturally driven thing. In certain cultures, even at 70, even at 80, you are still fertile. So you can go for subsequent marriages, kind of. I think I have given the answer. Because after all, the objective, the basic the basic rule or the purpose of human life is that, or for that matter, any species for that matter, if you have taken birth, your first responsibility is to multiply. Your first responsibility is to multiply. You have to leave your footprints for the future generations. So as long as you are doing that, you're fine. And don't worry about age. You have options. I'll look at these now. Polygyny and polyandry. In polygyny, there are various types. In polygyny, one we call, so generally in polygyny what happens? There is a male simultaneously wedded to more than one females. So the definition of polygyny varies based on who those wives are. It can be called a sororal polygyny or non-sororal polygyny. Sororal polygyny and non-sororal polygyny. Polygyny is at a point of time a male is simultaneously wedded to more than one females. In sororal polygyny, you can keep scribbling the definitions there. In sororal polygyny, a man's wives are sisters. A man's wives are sisters. Sororal polygyny is a marriage wherein a man's wives are sisters. Don't forget this flower bracket there. If I am removing this, it means that he is wedded to her alone. So this is very crucial for you. All this bunch is married to him. Now you may ask subsequent questions. Is it that all of them are getting married together to him or one after the other? It depends. Okay. And then when it comes to non-sororal polygyny, a man's wives are not sisters, or they may not be kinsmen to one another. They may not be related to one another. They're definitely not sisters. They may not even be related to one another. But they're all in a bunch married to a single male. You have huge number of examples there. The Mughals stand as a testimony to that. Bunches of wives and tons of concubines, so that makes the whole harem there. That is the reason why the king's palaces used to be so very palatious, so very huge. You must be wondering what's happening around. Maybe. Anji sir. తెలుగు వస్తుందా బంగారం? తెలుగు వస్తుందా? తెలుగు. ఇప్పుడు అదే అన్నమాట సమస్య. ఆయన అడిగేది కూడా అదే. ఆయన హిందీలో అడుగుతున్నారు, మీరు తెలుగులో అడుగుతున్నారు. నేను ఆల్రెడీ ఇంగ్లీష్లో చెప్పేశాను. In the non-sororal also, if you are getting all of them in a bunch, you get them all together. If you are not getting them together, one after one after one, so it choice is up to you and opportunities available to you. I'll come. फिर से बताए फिर से बताए. हाँ. Who are they? Who are they? Sisters. By birth, sisters. I cannot tie Rakhi and make you my sister so that I can get married to your husband. ठीक है? The problem is you won't get so many doubts elsewhere. In marriage, you get doubts because marriage is a doubtful relationship. अभी ठीक है, अर्पित? You're fine. They are already sisters. Something happened. हाँ जी sir. They are not sisters. Don't worry about what's the relationship now. That's not your problem. Your problem is this. Be focused. What you want, only this. And you see that they are not sisters. Whatever may be the interconnection between them. Don't bother about that. That culture decides. Culture will tell you whether you can marry them or not. Once it tells you can marry this bunch of people, grab any numbers from there. Because your culture is allowing polygyny. Can I go to the other one? You have polyandry. Another very sumptuous kind of a marriage. In polyandry, a female is simultaneously married to more than one males. Okay? A female is simultaneously married to more than one males. So we will see the types therein. One is called fraternal polyandry. One is called fraternal polyandry. The other is non-fraternal. And the third is familial polyandry. Are you there? I'm sure you would love these things. Huh? See, I'm giving you so many varieties so that you can choose from one. So what you'll be doing back home along with this, I'm still talking about this. Sir, in your social anthropology book, you have serial number 4, chapter 2.3, starting with marriage, definition, forms, marriage payments. I'm sure you'll be more interested in marriage payments. So you read those topics, self-explanatory. We will be coming back on that nevertheless. Social anthropology booklet, serial number 4. Topic chapter 2.3. Enjoy reading, I'm sure you will. Coming back here. Fraternal, non-fraternal, familial. Fraternal is a female's husbands are brothers. A female's husbands are brothers. You need not have 5, but I thought 5 is auspicious enough. So, somehow Indians love number 5 for everything. Everywhere we go, 5 comes up. A female's husbands are brothers. Now the same questions might come up. Should they all marry her together or one after the other? It's up to you. There are certain cultures where if you are getting wedded to one, automatically she is getting wedded to the rest of the people also. There need not be extra ceremonies there. There will not be any more expenditure. Only one expenditure. All of them are wedded to her. Shortcut. So all the husbands of a female are brothers. That is fraternal polyandry. Non-fraternal, the female's husbands are not related to one another. The female's husbands are not related to one another. We still have to go and examine in what circumstances these might happen. There could be several reasons. That's what is the inquiry. Why we do what we do. If somebody is more than happy with one mate, what is happening there? Why is it that they are being contented with only one? Whereas the other societies are there where more than one partners are. Is it because there are not enough of females and hence you are getting happy with one alone, a bunch of males getting married to a female alone because enough number of females are not there? Or maybe some other reasons. The third one there, familial anthropology. That is clear? Parents? This is clear? That is familial anthropology. A female is married to males within the same family across the generations. That may be one's own father, or maybe, so this is fine. Within the same family, a female is getting married to males across the generations. Very, very peculiar kind of a marriage. Actually, that is what we try to train your minds all about. One should not be aghast, one should not be really amazed. You can be amused. You shall not be amazed and shocked at the kind of cultural practices that might see globally. For all the suitable examples and all that stuff would come to you. In today's class, we are going to look at two tribes, both of them known for polyandry. And after that, I will take you to meaning of economic anthropology and all that stuff. Is that okay, sir? This is fraternal polyandry. No, acha, I'll add something else here. Let me finish. I'll forget this. Suppose I take typical Draupadi's case. This man was more than happy because though he wanted to marry somebody else and no choice because his name was that. So the second fellow had, apart from her, even the third fellow had maybe this also. Wherever he went, he had kind of setups there. I mean, additional marriages there, whatever you call, kind of. And then the last two fellows, gullible fellows, they didn't know what was happening around. They said it was polyandry. Okay, fine, we are all wedded to the female. Such kind of a practice we call polygynandry. A combination of polygyny and polyandry. Polygynandry. Polygynandry is a female is married to several males, and the males also at the same time are married to several females. A very peculiar case there. Polygynandry is a simultaneous presence of polygyny and polyandry. It might even indicate equality of rights. Gender equality there. When you can have 4 wives, why not I have 4 husbands? Equality. हाँ जी सर. कुछ पूछ रहे थे. You were asking. In the case of fraternal polyandry, generally fraternal polyandry might happen when numbers are small. Numbers of females are less when compared to the males. I'll put it this way. Because you have asked this, let me take a small detour. In what circumstances you have to pay dowry? You want to pay? You want to pay? No? When you have asked this, what does that mean? What is a dowry? ఎంత పాలిష్డ్గా చెప్పినావు. తెలుగు తెలుగు నో యూ డోంట్ నో తెలుగు వెరీ గుడ్. A polished way of defining dowry, it's a financial assistance given to whom? Given to whom? To the groom or bride or both. First of all, they are not listening. What's your take? I mean, how much? How much financial assistance? I should know. I told you in the last class. I should know. When I'm suggesting somebody to you, I should say, this is the expectation of this boy coming from this kind of a background, and IIT and all that stuff. And as if not sufficient, IMB tha or kuch eyes the, kind of finally frozen. Don't know what to do. Sir, people have misconceptions. Dowry is kanyadhan. Dowry is nothing to be given to the male, nothing to be given to the groom. It is actually to be given to the bride. It is actually to be given to the bride. That is the reason why these days the terminologies have changed. When marriage talks happen, the practice is that boy and girl meet out. So boy says, I don't expect anything. We don't expect anything actually. If at all your parents would want to give something to you, that's fine. So that is a true way of understanding. That is kanyadhan. You should be giving to the daughter, not to the son-in-law, to be son-in-law. That is the practice of dowry. Nevertheless, in that topic, marriage payments, I have given a great detail there in the marriage payments. But then I will have to say here, in Hindu social system, because the thing had come, whether she should be giving dowry not to one but to several people, that's your doubt. Because he's already fixed in mind that a marriage practice should involve dowry, not the other way around. So if you are actually having a bonus of several other husbands, should I be paying to all of them a separate dowry, or one installment is sufficient? Yeah, I'll talk about it. We have several varnas in Hindu society. Chaturvarna system we have. We don't know what varna is right now. We only understand that they are talking about some kind of occupational groups or the kinds. Somebody arranging in a proper order like Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. These are the Chaturvarnas. Now, I'm not getting into who a Brahmin is, what he does, what Kshatriya does and all that stuff, but you'll have to understand at this stage, in order to know who should pay dowry, who should not pay, etc., that, for example, there is this male, these are all the females, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. We have a practice. Look at your syllabus, laws of marriage. In laws of marriage, there is something called hypergamy and hypogamy. In the typical Sanskrit terms, we call them anulom and pratilom. So there is something called hypergamy and hypogamy. Hypergamy is anuloma marriage. Anuloma marriage is, these are all the Brahmin males, they are the females. In anulom, what happens is, you can scribble in the footnote somewhere, anulom is where the upper varna male marrying a female from the same varna, or the varnas inferior to his own varna. Got the point? Anuloma is where the upper varna male marrying a female from his own varna, or the females belonging to the varnas below his own varna. So what is happening there? A Brahmin male can marry a Brahmin female, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra female, so all of them are available for him. And maybe a Kshatriya male can marry a Kshatriya female, a Vaishya female, a Sudra female. A Vaishya can marry Vaishya and Sudra, whereas a Sudra male can marry only a Sudra female. The problem for the Sudra male is already some of the stock is gone, because everybody is accessible to them. All the Sudras are actually accessible to rest of the three varnas. So by the time his turn comes, he has only small numbers left out. So in order to get married, he should pay to her an amount higher than what others could have paid. Or he should be happy in polyandry. Yeah, there, sir? So what is happening there? A female is getting married to more number of males. The Sudras, they should be happy with compromising on one female, because not enough of numbers are left out for them. If you want exclusive wife for yourself, you'll have to pay more. You have to pay more and get the girl. This kind of a give and take, we call it bride price. You pay a price for the bride. Yeah? You there, ma'am? Your name? Hima. Fine. So, the question in Anuloma is, there are two people that are at disadvantage. One, Sudra male. Second, Brahmin female. Two people that are facing a disadvantage. Sudra male, he has not enough of females. Brahmin female, she has not enough of males. He should pay a bride price in order to have an exclusive wife or be happy in polyandry. A Brahmin female, because Brahmin female is a prized commodity and hence very costly. So people started looking here and there. So they thought, okay, fine, if not Brahmin, let me go for Kshatriya, Vaishya or whatever. And hence what is happening? The available male Brahmins are very, very limited there. She cannot go marry the low Varna males. That is forbidden for her. And hence what she has to do? Either she has to pay a higher dowry or she should be happy with polygyny. Yeah, fine? That's a male. For a male, it is fine. Being a male, you shouldn't ask that question. A female should ask that question, because that's a feminist question, actually. There are subtypes. Look at your syllabus. Look at your syllabus. Laws of marriage talk about whom you can marry, whom you cannot marry. There are something like endogamy, exogamy, endogamy, exogamy. Then there is something like hypogamy and hypergamy. Okay, sir? Endogamy is within your group you marry. Once I have identified within this group I can marry, the second question is how many I can marry. That is the types. Okay? So when I say anulom or pratilom, they are laws of marriage. Like how we say an upper varna male can marry a female here, the females here. meaning that you are opening opportunities for him. On the other hand, a Brahmin female, she can marry only a Brahmin male. She cannot marry all these. That is actually you are eliminating opportunities for her. You are narrowing down on this group. You can marry only on this group. Okay, but then once you have decided that, okay, this is the only group from where I can marry, now the second thing that comes up is how many I can marry. Okay, so what is happening there? A Brahmin female, because she is not in a position to pay a higher dowry, she has to compromise with one husband and several females. Am I there? So remember, from which group I can marry is a law. From which group I cannot marry is a restriction, regulation. Once they have told us from where one can marry, the second question is how many. So you can go the other way also. Suppose you want many, yeah? You want many, so you look for a group where many is a possibility. Get absorbed there. I said so much. You're fine? You're all good? Any questions? Second class, In the meantime, we will begin with this one. Sir, in the last class, we had stopped at the definitions of social anthropology. Look at page 99 in your booklet. That's where from you will read today back home. I tried to incorporate the meaning of primitive, etc. I mean, what I have to tell you is generally whatever we make you write in the classroom, that will not be obviously there in your print, and vice versa. That is the reason why very quickly we change our content, we change our books, so that it should be in accordance to what is going on in the class. So what you do in a detail here, we will be doing very minimal there, and vice versa. So your class is indispensable. What you write in your class is indispensable, and apart from your class, you will be doing this one for your extra references. Okay. Now, in the last class, we were saying that economic anthropology is a part of social anthropology. There were other segments also. We were mentioning familial anthropology, political anthropology, anthropological thought and art and kind of things. The reason why I wanted to start with economic anthropology was economics is a very inseparable aspect of the relationships. Or for that matter, this topic is closely linked to what is called integrationalism. In integrationalism, what we said was, sir, you are there, be here. No, let your soul be here, please. In integrationalism, what we said was, every cultural trait is interconnected with the others. And if there is a change in one trait, there is automatically a change in the rest of them. Okay? Now, it is here that we look at one other person. You can see chapter 6, paper 1. Chapter 6, paper 1. In neo-evolution, any names mentioned there? Louder? Hanji sir, padhiye. Me pere vannaru. Shiva.
Evolution is a child, white, steward, family, service.
Okay. Four names? Five names. steward, child, Salins, service. So you have already two colors in the class. One was brown, the other is white. It looks good to know the complete names. Leslie White, Gordon Child, Julian Stewart, Julian Stewart, Elman Service, Michael Salins, Michael Marshall Solins, generally called Marshall Solins. Five names there: Leslie White, Gordon Child, Julian Stewart, Salins and Service. Salins and Service, they always go together. These are the two very prominently known economic anthropologists. They are the prominently known economic anthropologists. We are going to look at them in today's class, some kind of concepts they had given. Child was an archaeologist. Leslie White, people didn't know where to put him. Because Leslie White was also somebody, there's one school in your syllabus called cultural materialism, studying culture through material. Don't get confused about it with regard to archaeology. Out of these, Stewart was actually from life sciences. He was an ecologist. He studied life sciences, and hence whatever he talks about is from the perspective of ecology. So he was an ecologist. Now, I'm naming all these people because I want to talk about economics as a very important culture trait that plays a great role in integrationalism. You're all there? You're all there? See, we started today's class. Go back. We started today's class with a favorite topic of all of you, that was marriage. In marriage, we looked at the types of marriage because I know you're all inquisitive to know how many I can marry because they'll mange more, kind of. You want more. Only to realize later that even one was more than enough or more than a nonsense there. And after having said the varieties therein, we are moving on into this topic of integrationalism in a closer perspective of economic anthropology. Integrationalism we now are using in the context that when one culture trait changes, the rest of the culture traits automatically change. That was the view, that was the kind of an explanation given by Malinowski. If you see the chronology in chapter 6, Malinowski is up there, Stewart is somewhere down. Stewart was somebody who survived even in 1970s, late 1970s. A little before you could actually be born. Meaning that he is a very contemporary anthropologist by all means. Generally what happens is, if a theory, a concept was given by somebody a little while ago, you try to modify it, try to give a little more muzzle to those theories. And maybe you try to provide a greater applicability. So when it comes to Stewart had used one concept called culture core. Do not forget this. We will be coming back to this particular concept in your physical anthropology. There is one topic in 9.7, if you look at your syllabus, 9.7. In 9.7, ecological anthropology, is it there? Ecological anthropology. In ecological anthropology, a whole lot of things are mentioned there. How humans get adapted to extreme temperatures, maybe cold, maybe hot temperatures, maybe high altitude, etc. These days it has become more than a norm for every second person in the world to aspire to be on the top of Everest. There's so much of traffic rush there, unimaginably high traffic rush, as if it's another tourist spot where everybody can pack bags. Night you get a dream that you are on the top of the Everest, and then next day you are packing bags and sitting on the journey there. And the government, on the other hand, is also, I think, of course, money makes many things, because they charge about 6 to 7 lakh rupees. I mean, each tourist would want to climb the Mount Everest. When he's coming up with such a huge bunch of money, you cannot say no. Keeping at stake all the safety regulations. I was actually seeing a comparison between what's happening on the Mount Everest and what happens in any temple city like Lord Balaji's Tirupati, where you are in a long trail there. Everybody's stranded out there, and then everybody pushing the other fellow. You go all the way to see the Lord Balaji. You don't get to see him, you just simply get pushed away from there. So what we see is the amount of time we are spending on the top of the Mount Everest has drastically reduced. All that treacherous journey means nothing, actually. So it is not simply here. There are several other occasions where ecological anthropology becomes very, very important for us. And Stewart was one of the earliest ecological anthropologists. He gave us this concept called culture core. I will tell you what it is. Then I'll take you there. By culture core, what we mean is, you may scribble the definition. They are the culture traits, culture core are the culture traits at the periphery of the culture. Culture core refers to the traits that are at the periphery of the culture and are the first ones to be influenced by any external entity, full stop. I repeat, culture core refers to those culture traits that are at the periphery of the culture and are the first ones to be influenced. Continue from there. The rest of the culture traits may get influenced gradually under integrationalism. Got the point, sir? Got the point? Generally, when we say core, suppose I ask you to draw a core, you may end up drawing there. The heart of the culture. But what he says is no. Literally, that forms the periphery of culture, because they are the first ones to be influenced. Once you are crossing the barrier of culture core, rest of the things will be accessible to you. You're there, you're not here, you're not at all here. ఏం ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు? చేతిలో పెన్ను లేదు, అందులో ఉంది కరెక్ట్. I'm a school teacher, sir. I'm very, very particular about whether a student is writing or not. It's only that I'm not having those chalk pieces in my hand so that I throw everywhere on you. పెన్నున్నది ఎందుకు? రాసుకోవాలి. బుద్ధిగా రాసుకోవాలి. You're not supposed to question. Why should I write this? The moment you have stepped in, you lost that right of asking what I should write, what I should listen, what I should not listen. Giving your own self completely, including your body, mind and soul, is very, very important. Give your body, mind and soul to the teacher so that we can make whatever it is. అంతేగాని ఇదేదో బాగుంది, కథ బాగుందిరా అని చెప్పేసి చేతులు కట్టుకొని సినిమా కథలేని అది కాదనమాట. తెలుగు రాని వాళ్ళు ఎవ్వరు బాగు చేయలేరు, మనం ఏం చేయలేము. क्या हुआ? आने दो. In the meantime, so culture core is fine. That was the concept given by this gentleman. Taking you from there, let me give you a few definitions or purposes rather. Suppose
The marriage can also
suppose that is another person, Ralph Paddington. He was talking about what are the goals of economic anthropology. So, when Stewart was giving us the concept of culture core, according to him, economics forms the culture core. According to Stewart, economics forms the culture core. Once you influence the economics, everything else can be influenced. On that note, I give a break. You finish writing that what are the objectives of economic anthropology? It is actually to gather the information about economic human nature. That's very, very important, economic human nature. And the process that results in the economic contacts, and to study primitive and contemporary economic systems. So basically, in economic anthropology, we are trying to study what is the economic nature of man. What is the economic nature of man? Secondly, we talk about how economic contacts happen. And thirdly, a comparison of primitive and contemporary economics. The second one is to know how economic contacts form. Can I go? Economic anthropology is a branch or sub-branch of social anthropology, along with 4 other subfields given by we have written 5 different subcategories of Paul Bohannon. I know, 2 days of break in between. Fourfold classification of anthropology was given by Boas. Categorization of socio-cultural anthropology into various subfields, the 5 of them was given by Bohannon. We are talking about this man who is trying to define what we do in economic anthropology. We basically try to examine the human economic nature. And we get to study how economic contacts get established. And we have a comparative account of primitive and contemporary economics. Can I go? Sir, it is in this context we actually take you forth in the economic anthropology where they study 3 primary things. 3 primary things. One is how you produce the goods, how you distribute them, and how you consume. Three, three things. When we say patterns of economic subsistence, what we mean is how you produce, secondly, how you distribute, and thirdly, how you consume. Production, distribution, and consumption, these are the three things that are actually necessary. Production, distribution, and consumption. We are referring to a chapter in paper 1, number 3, which is called Economic Anthropology, which is a part of socio-cultural anthropology. We had begun with economic anthropology because we strongly believe that economics forms the culture core. By economic anthropology, we mean we study the basic human economic nature and how we get into economic relations, and we have a comparative temporal study. How you produce, how you distribute, and how you consume. What I would want to begin with is there are a couple of other popular terms that would help you know how we produce, how we distribute, and how we consume. It is in that context, anybody who had studied geography earlier, geography as a subject in undergraduation or as an optional subject? As an optional subject. So you can help us a lot. That was your old mother. You left your mother and came. Optional subject is like your faith. Changing an optional subject is changing your faith. There is something called geographical determinism. There's something called geographical determinism. So my focus right now is on geographical determinism. పని చేస్తుంటే కష్టపడండి లేదంటే రేపు చూద్దాం జరిగేదా geographical determinism. Sir, what are the different tribes that we have come across so far? What are the different tribes we have come across so far? Yanomamo, yeah, and Maler or Eskimo. Okay, Eskimo. Who studied? Who studied? Duas. No. I would want to bring here the concept of geographical determinism. Here I would use one other thinker by name Lorna Marshall. The story is quite interesting. I'm sure you'd enjoy. Lorna Marshall's writings were much prior to Boas. That you should keep in mind. You already know by now that Boas was the one who gave an idea to us that seeing is believing. Without going to the field, you don't write cock and bull stories. You first see and then you write. Lorna Marshall was, of course, a field worker. She studied a society by name heard of this name? Kung Bushman. Bushman? Where? Kalahari. Kalahari. And I have written an exclamatory symbol here. That's how the name starts. Kung Bushman. Some people even call it, it looks fine. Should do. That's called a click. The symbol is a click. And those are those tribes where in the middle of your name clicks come. So suppose you are Suresh. Suresh. Kind of. Or may even be a question mark might come. Sure? You're not really sure. Several Mexican tribes have this problem. In the middle of the name, there are so many symbols coming up. And the ones that she had studied, Marshall studied another tribe. You will have to write parallel symbol there. This is called Lanas. G, parallel symbol, A-N-A-S. G is silent. Parallel is pronounced as La. Lanas. Such a comical thing. Now, our discussion here revolves around 1. Lorna Marshall, 2. Kung Bushman, 4. Eskimo. She has used something called a comparative approach to understand what is called geographical determinism. I repeat, we are talking about the fieldwork of this lady Lorna Marshall, who had visited the Kung Bushmen, and she has also visited the Lanas. She wrote about Eskimo without visiting. ठीक है? And hence whatever she had written about Eskimos was actually challenged by people based on what Boas had done, had seen in the Eskimos. Now, what we mean by geographical determinism is geography determines culture. What we mean by geographical determinism is geography determines culture. Yeah, I was there somewhere, yeah, with this lady. Geographical determinism means geography determines culture. It's something like, in the kind of environmental conditions that you live, in the kind of geographical conditions you live. See, for example, you are a Highlander. You live one particular kind of a life. If you are somebody living in the river basins, you have one kind of a life. Your geography determines, or maybe perhaps you are living along the seashore. By default, you believe that, okay, people living on the seashore should be consuming the fish, the seafood. It's a different story. If at all I am comparing maybe somebody in a Gujarat, somebody in Bengal, both of them have the sea line there. Gujarat with one of the longest coastline there, predominantly inhabited by the non-vegetative people. The whole lot of fish is going waste out there. I feel so bad about it. On the other hand, you have Bengal where jalpushp is consumed. That's a vegetarian food. You cannot live without. Bengalis are that they can tell much better.
How do we differentiate between ecological anthropology and geographical anthropology?
वो फिर से आएगा. I mean, I don't want to get into that now, because before I talk about ecological anthropology, I have to tell you what are the links between geographical determinism, and then you have environmental determinism, then you have ecological determinism, several stages to come up. That's all together evolution of ecological anthropology. So I put you down there. Now, what she did was, her study of the Kung Bushmen is still considered to be an epic in itself, because the way she had looked at the Kung Bushmen sharing was, as you know, they live in a very hot climatic condition, so hostile that you cannot store your food. And Kung Bushmen are one of the very primitive communities of the world today. With whatever kind of external influence, many of them still are struggling to live with the hunting as the basic economic subsistence. And when she had visited them, she found a very intricately designed distribution system among them. See, the Kung Bushmen we keep visiting again and again, because Kung are known for a very strong kin groups, very strong importance being given to the kinship. So much so that they have this saying that if you do not have a kinsman, you are less than a bug. If you do not have kinsmen, you are less than a bug. You need to have kinsmen in order to prove that you are a human. I mean, that's a challenge to the modern Western societies, where you do not many times know even who your mother, who your father is, because you don't get to meet them, not even once a week. You must have seen long time ago, I mean, many years ago, you don't get to see your siblings. But then the Kung have this strong affinity towards their kinsmen, and where Lorna Marshall describes, these are the people who live with bow and arrow. See, bow and arrow is a primary thing. You must have used bow and arrow in your childhood, no? Never to strike the target there. It was much more a fancy than anything else. We can never understand how that arrow actually shoots the target. We have, of course, these days guns and all as substitutes. No, accuracy is much higher there when compared to your bow and arrow. So archery is something, that calls for a lot of skill. Here in the Kung Bushmen, where there's no economic wealth. They don't have an economic wealth actually. The maximum they have is the bow and arrow they produce, they manufacture. That's the technology for them. And they do understand that just because I have manufactured an arrow, I need not be a person who has a skill of shooting an arrow. So I am the owner of the arrow. I have given the arrow to somebody for use. So he has used the arrow, he had shot an animal. The first share must come to me because I am the owner of the arrow. The second share should go to the one who had hunted. The third share should go to my parents. Fourth will go to his parents. Fifth will come to my in-laws. Sixth will go to his in-laws. And the thing is so very intricate. I mean, every individual in the kinsman will actually get a share. Just imagine, you have hunted a rabbit. What will you get? Maybe the smallest possible strand out there, and you exhibit, see, this one I got, kind of. But then that's how the whole thing is. That is the reason why Kung Bushmen look for having the biggest possible hunt. And they know pretty well, in the kind of tropical climate they live in, it is very, very difficult for them to save the food. And hence, whatever they have hunted, they distribute, they finish the same day. The next day actually begins on an empty slate, or an empty plate rather. So she found a reason. Geographical determinism for the Kung Bushmen is because they are living in such kind of a hostile territory, they cannot save, and hence maybe they are distributing. Achha, when do you generally share with people? When you have excess, not when you have less. First you would want to have for yourself, but people want it when there is less, when there is scarcity. We keep this question in mind. We'll come back on this. Is it that everywhere it is a cultural rule that we share only when we have more? Or the culture rule is when we don't have, we share? We give up when we have very scarce resources. We'll come back on that. But if at all we see in the contemporary, consumeristic, capitalistic society, we tend to share only when we have surplus, or we give things only those that are less useful for us. Or maybe we gift the scrap, keeping the useful one with us. We gift the scrap, keep the useful for us. Ponder over these things, we will come back on that. Now, she was comparing them with the Lanas. Lanas are in the neighborhood of Kung Bushmen. So technically they are living in the same geography. Whatever was true there should be true for them also. But then, in the Lanas, there is very less sharing compared to Kung Bushmen. In the Lanas, there is less sharing because Lanas had mastered the art of storing the food. They have mastered the art of storing the meat they had hunt. They have mastered this art of processing the food, the meat, drying it and protecting it for the future. जैसे ना कबाब की लड़ियां सुखाते हैं बकरीद में, when you have Eid al-Zuha, you have the offering of the goat, and then whatever meat that we get, we tend to dry it, preserve it, so that you consume for the next generation till the next year comes. बड़ी बड़ी कबाब की लड़ियां सूखती हैं, so that you preserve. Of course, you give to the others, that's a different story. To whom you give, and then automatically you're also getting back, kind of, no? Ek raan udhar diya aur ek raan idhar liya, kind of. And the Muslim fraternity can understand this much better, appreciate it much better. But here what is happening? Though they are living in the same geography, there is something else that is dictating, that is technology. You have the technology and hence you are able to have a different kind of a sharing mechanism. This we call technological determinism. The name Leslie White that you have written a little while ago was the champion of this school, this belief called technological determinism. Are you there? Now, she was actually comparing Eskimo with the Kung Bushmen. Eskimo she did not visit, but then what she thought was, Eskimo may not be sharing much because they are already living in a refrigerator. They need not worry about storing. Whatever you have hunted there, you have just put it. It will be there for years. So they are, in the writings of Lorna Marshall, Eskimos are highly me-centered people. They are highly me-centered people. And also, she must have also thought it because they have a nuclear family. So she must have thought, okay, you are living in a nuclear family, and hence, and also you are living in a refrigerator, and hence maybe possibly that you don't share much. I hope you got it. A comparison of Eskimo and Kung Bushmen gave her an idea that geography operates. The kind of life a Kung Bushman has and an Eskimo has. In Eskimo, you need not have to share, but in the Kung Bushman, sharing is mandatory. Today I got a hunt, tomorrow I may not get a hunt. Even if I am storing the elephant that I have hunt today, I will not be able to eat the next day. So it's better I give away, not simply to my own people, to the neighboring tribes also. As a gift I am giving away. So that when I don't have a food, you respond. You're there, sir. So how you produce, how you distribute, and how you consume, these are the subject matter of this particular discipline. Now let me take you to a categorization of economic subsistence methods. A categorization of economic subsistence methods. The ones by Paul Bohannon. Paul Bohannon says there are 5 different types of economies: hunting, gathering, herding or pastoralism, horticulture. So the first 3 are called primitive or pre-agricultural economics. The first 3 are primitive or pre-agricultural. Whatever work was given to you from the topic of marriage, you do back home, sir. So that when I get to do marriage in the class, I won't be spending a lot of time. Formula is very simple. Where there are not many returns, marriage has not much of returns. Where there are not many returns in terms of marks, and where it is not really essential to give a lot of discussion, we would try to curtail on that. But then from marriage, we will be picking up the topics that are contemporary. Like live-in relationships is a contemporary thing. A question was already asked though. Divorce modification, amendment of Divorce Act is something contemporary. Uniform civil code in the context of marriage, stability, instability, that's a contemporary one. So we will be taking those discussions in the class. But whatever goody-goody, whatever kind of very juicy you can do from the book. So Paul Bohannon comes up with these varieties of economic subsistences. He calls them primitive and contemporary, primitive or pre-agricultural. What happens is, as you are moving from hunting gathering to factory, whatever, 2 important things change. One is the notion of private property. The notion of private property, the concept of individualism, concept of private property, individualism, and surplus. Private property, individualism, and surplus. Meaning, as you move from foraging societies, foraging in the sense the one that are dependent on hunting and gathering, as you are moving from foraging societies to industrial societies, capitalistic societies, what changes is this: community property gets into the form of private property and individualism takes a major character there, and then perhaps surplus. So it is in that context if you look at this. From foraging to industrial societies, if you move, take time, you can. So that's how things move on, foraging to horticulture to pastoral, blah, blah, blah. And then mode of consumption, social organizations that consume, how are the basic things budgeted, and then you have how you exchange, what you exchange. Give a quick write up on that, and then I will talk about that. In foraging times, minimalism is what is necessary. What is necessary, you produce. Whereas there, you have production with an intention of consumerism. Per capita consumption is much more when compared to foraging. So you actually move from needs to wants to greeds. You understand the difference, right? Need, want, and a greed. Need is what is necessary, without which you cannot survive. Want is a little more. That's actually not necessary for your survival, but then you would want more. Greed is even the neighbors I would want. I don't want to give to anybody. Everything for myself. So one wife is a need. Two wives is a want. The entire female humanity is mine is a greed. So many new terms we will discuss today. So what is a gift? What is a gift? Sir, what is a gift? Any dictionary meaning? You can check your dictionary and tell me. Dictionary meaning. You have a dictionary? Huh? What's that? What does your dictionary say? Maybe you can look into your mobile and tell me the meaning of gift.
Giving something without expecting back.
Giving something without expecting back. Okay. We keep on that, we will get back. These days, people are demanding gifts. What gift will you give me for my birthday? Gifts on demand. And shopkeepers are providing free gifts. I don't know why the word free there. Otherwise, you might charge for the gift. So, primary category of exchange is gifting. There it is the same. Nothing is free, including gifts. Shopkeeper is showing something as being gifted to you free because he has already charged you for that. You have made a 10,000 rupees of purchase, out of which he is already getting about a 4,000 rupees of profit, and then he is giving you a gift voucher of 500 rupees. And in order to grab that 500 rupees, you are incurring that expenditure of 10,000, even if it is not necessary for you. Actually, this is the exercise that we make the school children do. When you go to the supermarket, when you are purchasing, list out the things that you have purchased which you are not actually using them. The ones that would be there in the cupboard for some time, and then straight away they go into the dustbin there. Today we looked at what is called geographical determinism. Geography determines culture. And we should also understand occasionally, even if you live in the same geography, you may not be having similar kind of living because culture, technology is dictating. That's where we look at technological determinism. A simple comparison of Lanas and Kungbushmi.
These types of which country?
Huh?
These types of
Which types? Tribes. Kung Bushman is in the Kalahari, so it comes in the down south. It's there in Angola. Partly they are there in Chad and southern Africa. You have Lanas nearby next to them, and Eskimos, of course, in the Siberian region there, Canadian region. We would try to see the mirror images in India as well. So we are looking at what, can I go? We are looking at what Paul Bohannon was talking about. He had given this kind of a categorization basically. He categorizes subsistence strategies into food collectors and food producers. Foragers are nothing but hunter-gatherers. Simple foragers and complex foragers. Then you have food producers, herders and farmers. And after that you have industrial people. As far as description of each of them is concerned, we would be taking that up in tomorrow's class, tomorrow day after tomorrow's class, wherein we will take up Indian tribes and try to arrange them in those categories. I have scheduled that in your Wednesday session. Can I go? But then here I should actually tell you that whenever we come across particular kind of economic subsistence methods, say for example, a foraging community like Kungbushman we are coming across, there are a few things that we should remember. We generally want you to remember these. I mean, whenever you write an ethnographic profile of a particular kind of economic subsistence based tribe, you should know in what kind of ecosystem they live and various categories. For example, you speak about hunter-gatherers, small foragers. We have good number of examples. Here in today's class, we have come across Kungbushman and the Lanas. They are particularly the simple foragers, their ecosystem, where they live, and the kind of technologies the kind of technologies they might be following, and then the kind of ownership they have, whether it's a community ownership and then individual ownership, in what amount of population they live, what are the various modes of exchanges. All this actually, whenever we pick up these kind of economic subsistences, we will be trying to do that in the Wednesday's class with several Indian examples. Right now, my focus here in today's class is how people exchange. This is all how you are actually producing. As a hunter-gatherer, how you produce. As a horticulturist, how you produce. The underlying theme is when you move from food producer to food collector, you tend to have mostly individual assets, private assets, rather than community assets. So whenever you come across any kind of ethnograph, when you have to write about economic subsistence method, these are the things that you should be making a note of. So as I was saying, a Kung Bushman might be having a few arrows and nothing more than that, or maybe some blankets. But then when you are coming into what are called pastoral communities, pastoralists are those that have a livestock. In order to graze the livestock, they might have some pasture lands. The pasture lands might be owned by the complete group, or the pasture lands might be owned by the individual family. So when I'm saying that a family is owning pasture, a family is owning some kind of a herd, I mean that a private property is emerging. And by the time you come to industrial world, though there are community assets, but then you focus more on individual assets. So you try to make profit out there. So we will get into those discussions, but before that, your syllabus talks about, look at your syllabus, there are different types of exchanges. We would start talking about them. Your syllabus talks about reciprocity, redistribution, and market as methods of exchanges. What you might exchange? You might exchange goods, you might exchange services, you might exchange labor. I work in your farm, I work in your farm. We might exchange people, slaves can be exchanged. Hannah, take the picture, then I will talk. From today we will have a tightrope walk for you, good bit of readings back home. So finish them on a daily basis. Types of exchange: reciprocity, redistribution, and market. Within reciprocity, you have generalized, there's a spelling error there, generalized reciprocity, balanced, and negative. This kind of a categorization was given by Salins. You should not forget the name Salins, who was an economic anthropologist. Marshall Salins, Salins. Salins categorized different types of exchanges into reciprocity, redistribution, and market. And when reciprocity was studied in a greater detail, then Elman Service gave these concepts. So overall picture of redistribution, reciprocity, and market. So that categorization was given by Salins. And when it comes to further description of reciprocity into the varieties, here we get the name of Elman Service. So Salins initiates the process. Details of reciprocity was given by service, Hellman service. Now, I was mentioning that a variety of things can be exchanged. One of the very interesting type of exchange, you can see page 37, Social Anthropology book, page 37. It is actually about marriage payments. Page 37. It is actually about marriage payments, but then you see in the table, number 3, third one in the table, suitor service. Suitor service. Now go to the next page, page 39, to see the suitor service. It generally acts as a replacement for bride wealth among the poorer sections of the societies. Here, the groom or any of his close relatives works for a number of years to have rights over the bride and her progeny to be. In suitor service, the payment is not in cash or goods, but in the form of a service. So beautiful. You want to marry a girl, you are giving your service. You are called a suitor. You are working in the household of to-be wife so that you are accepted by them. For specified number of years you work there for no payment. Only thing you will get is if they are satisfied, they might give you their girl in marriage. Suitor service. See, these are things that I really love. Now, let me take you to each of them. Look at this. We would begin with reciprocity. Reciprocity is when two people, whether the individuals or groups, are giving and taking things. Reciprocity may be, it's something like in a common terminology, mutual give and take. You give something, I reciprocate. If I don't reciprocate, you keep looking at me. I have given you a gift, you're not responding, I am constantly looking at you, waiting for that gift to come. Reciprocity. First you give so that you establish a strong social relationship. Then you get back what you want. So you're not telling initially that I want back. A typical moneylender, a typical tribal moneylender. For everything you can come to me, I give you. A typical judgment. Establish a bond. Then you take what you want. This is the reason why I was asking in the other class, do you do something without expecting anything back? Do you do anything without expecting anything back? Have you come across any such relationship wherein people do without expecting anything back? Parents. You forgot your parents actually. I'd asked question that day, you didn't think back home for an answer. So when Hellman service was categorizing reciprocity, that was what was given based on Salin's work. Based on Salin's work, the forms of reciprocity was given by L-man service. He calls them generalized reciprocity, balanced and negative reciprocity. First you understand what it is. In generalized reciprocity, it's something like this. You tend to give things without expecting anything back, at least immediately. Generalized reciprocity is where we tend to give things without expecting anything back, at least immediately. So parents, if they are giving you, at least immediately they are not expecting back. Maybe in the old age sometime. But then the timeline is so very long. There's such an enormous giving. Apart from that, you have anything? Prasadam, okay. ఏ గుడికి వెళ్ళారు ఈరోజు? So whenever you come from Tirupati or Shirdi, you are giving to people without expecting anything back. You're only giving. The expectation may be that you get punya sometime later. You are looking for the afterlife benefits. You are giving today or anything else like that. You're giving something where you are not expecting anything back, at least immediately. Think. For tax evasion, for tax adjustment there. ATC. और क्या था? Insurance. For the benefit of the insurance company. That's all. Life. మళ్ళీ చెప్పు. You are giving to your wife. మళ్ళీ correction. Okay. That's a good one actually. You're not expecting anything back from her except trust, faithfulness. I gave you this and hence don't look here and there, kind of. Monetization of love. And how many days you must have spent at the gate of the women's college without expecting anything back. कुछ तो हो जाए. Don't know. Balanced reciprocity is that mutual give and take. When you're giving something, you expect the good or service or whatever in return. The return has to be in the equal value within a prescribed period of time. You have invited your friend for a coffee. At one point of time, sharing food was not something in a balanced reciprocity. It was a generalized reciprocity. But now it is a balanced reciprocity. Today I paid your food bill. Tomorrow it's your responsibility to pay my food bill. The timeline is also very narrow. Balanced reciprocity. Balanced reciprocity is so very strongly influencing these days, everywhere. No? And then you have the negative reciprocity, wherein we see that you try to give very little and grab the maximum. Give very little and get the maximum. That is negative reciprocity. When Salins and Service were writing about these, for them generalized reciprocity was something that is with the closest kinsman. Balanced reciprocity may be with the far off kinsman and with your friends. Negative reciprocity may be with the non-kinsmen and enemies. You're following? You tend to indulge in generalized reciprocity with your closest kinsmen within your family. You had fallen terribly sick. Your family has been serving you. Generalized reciprocity. They are only praying to God that you be fine. They are not expecting that, okay, once you get up from the bed, you serve us, kind of. Listen to what your parent is praying for you when you're sick on the bed. You may not be doing the same thing for them. That's a different story. Because there are other external influences out there. That's where the institution of family comes into challenge. You look for alternatives so that somebody else can take care of your ailing parent. That's where family tends to be replaced by something else. Balanced reciprocity is something that we see everywhere existing. I mean, balanced reciprocity for salience and service is a type of exchange that exists between friends and far-off relatives. With the close kinsmen, you should not indulge in balanced reciprocity. Negative reciprocity may be with the enemies and unconnected people. Meaning you're not supposed to cheat on your close people. But that's what happens these days. Only your friend can cheat you. Only your closest relative can cheat you because he knows whatabouts and whereabouts, howabouts of you. Things have changed so much. There are a few examples which I would bring to you. When it comes to generalized reciprocity, as our friend says, the parents across all the societies is a great example for generalized reciprocity. The definition goes as such: generalized reciprocity is where the exchange happens without the immediate return, without an expectation of immediate return. That's where are the Kung Bushmen. Most of the simple societies, Yanomamos, Inuits. Acha, we were watching that video, We Are What We Eat, है ना? Anybody try to look into the other parts of the thing? At one place we have Siberian populations also, Inuit populations also, where we see that huge lot of meat is actually placed, all the kind of waste meat, and then the kind of the things that human cannot consume, they are actually putting in a dump outside the village. That's what the Inuit community does, so that whenever their dogs or their fox, they need some kind of a food, they actually get it from there. So community is actually placing there, dumping there, so that whoever needs in the community or passerby, whoever the traveler on that route, if they need, they can have it from that dump. So that's not a waste dump actually. You are actually making your animals consume. That is one kind of a generalized reciprocity. The Netsulik Inuits that was studied by that man, who was. Acha, look at your booklet. In the topic of economic anthropology, page number 108 and page 107. This is a balanced reciprocity. Balanced reciprocity is where mutual give and take happens. I would here want to talk a bit about what is there on page 108, balanced reciprocity. Look at that picture, Toda, Kota, Badaga and Kurumba. The pictures are very, very necessary for your exam. Sir, are you here, all of you? Which chapter are we doing? Oh, great, you remember. We are doing economic anthropology, wherein the topic of discussion is different types of economic exchanges. Everything with different cultural examples, we will have to strengthen the understanding. Balanced reciprocity is where there is a give and take of goods or services or any kind or cash or individual service, everything that is exchanged in terms of value, in terms of a timeline. Now here I would want to, you can have a look at 108, 108. There are 4 tribes mentioned in that picture: Toda, Kota, Badaga, and Kurumba. Out of these, the most developed tribe, the most evolved tribe is Toda. Toda is the most evolved tribe. We will be doing Toda ethnograph during this week sometime. The Toda are a pastoral tribe. The Toda are a pastoral tribe. A brief intro I'm trying to give about this tribe because we are trying to explain this topic, balanced reciprocity, in the context of all those tribes that are living in the Nilgiri region. All of them are Nilgiri tribes. Some of you who are from that region must have visited them, must have seen them. We are talking about all these tribes that are living in the Nilgiri. Out of these, the Toda is a pastoral tribe. They are buffalo rearing community. They are buffalo rearing community. See, Toda is a very interesting community. If at all we see the basic ethnograph, I know you remember this. We said earlier that any ethnograph is a momentary writing about a culture group. You remember we said this. Ethnograph, of course, is a detailed writing about a culture group without a comparison whatsoever. Sir, at this stage, I have to introduce to you some people, some thinkers, and this particular tribe of the Toda. So the Toda, who are the inhabitants of the Nilgiri, they have several characteristics. One is, it is a pastoral tribe. It is a polyandrous tribe. It is a polyandrous tribe. In fact, they trace their ancestry to Panchapandavas. And from there they believe that they have this trait of polyandry. When I say that ethnograph is momentary, whatever traits like polyandry we are speaking about, or even pastoral, they are the characteristics of once upon a time Todas. The contemporary Todas are very well developed. They have modern deities, they have monogamy, they are Christianized, they have a whole lot of English education and all the jobs. When I'm saying this, I'm not saying that every Toda is that. You should understand that in every community there is elitism. Whatever fruits of development are there, a few hands must have grabbed and few others are still there. But then you will have to understand, based on those islands of growth that we see, the elitism is definitely there. There are people who really made a mark in the Toda. Now, apart from all this, I actually would want to look at your syllabus, chapter 6, paper 1. You have this school of diffusionism. Sir, you're all fine? You're all good? Not sleepy, right? Yeah? Diffusionism. Anything that is written in that? British, German, and American. But I'm not going by the nationality there. I would want to introduce this man called W.H.R. Rivers, one of the very handsome anthropologists. You should wait for his pictures in the future classes, especially the girls. Rivers, WHR Rivers. Rivers was the one who produced the ethnograph, the Toda. Ethnograph, the Toda. He was actually describing the very traditional life of the Toda. He found that the Todas were the people who lived in their villages. They were sedentary. See, when I say pastoral, you might get several tribes to mind. Like Bakrawals are there, Gujars are there, who are rather nomadic or partly sedentary and partly nomadic. But these people are settled pastoralists. When I say settled pastoralists, they have permanent villages. It means that they are well above the rest of the pastoral communities. Apart from being polyandrous, these people had, you can see that picture out there, a very clearly laid out exchange mechanism. Very clearly laid out exchange mechanism. Some populations are there like the Kota, the agricultural community there. And some people who supply iron utensils to them, iron implements to them. Some people who produce music related things to them. In fact, the Todas have such a beautiful balanced reciprocity with the neighbors. Even magical services are provided to them on balanced reciprocity. I provide you milk, you do the magic. So that my pastures would be good, my livestock would give enough amount of milk so that I can exchange. This is a very, very beautifully laid out balanced reciprocity. That was disturbed by one very important incoming force, that was the entry of Western populations. When Nilgiris was scaled by the British rulers, when they had established their own ruling group there, ruling settlement there on the hills of Ooty, when they had started to lay down this Nilgiri Hill Railway, with that several things started to be changed, meaning a whole lot of displacement started to occur. You'll have to understand, sir, when we look at dams or several other projects that resulted in displacement of people, dams or mines must have disturbed people from one particular patch of land, but when it comes to roads or railways, these are called linear displacements. The whole route through which the electric line goes, or the power, or maybe the railway track goes, the roadway goes, that whole lot of thing. Now it is generally said, you remember this man B.D. Sharma? Yeah, B.D. Sharma, what was that book? Dalits Betrayed, in which he actually writes that one single roadway or railway into the tribal heartland would actually lay down a route towards their death, unless otherwise you protect their basic interest. This is one region that had led to the displacement of the whole lot of communities from the Nilgiri region. But among all these, the Todas were the ones who changed their life according to the changes that were going on. They got adopted, so much so that apart from their own deities, they started worshipping the Nilgiri Railway as one of the other supernatural things. And they actually took the benefit of the railway, they traveled out, and now if you observe, there are people who have established dairies, and they are really a force to reckon with. But then that is the balanced reciprocity. You would anyway read it there. I would here want to give you some more examples. As you list those examples, we will talk about each of them. The coolering. I want your complete attention because explaining each one of those would require some bit of energy from me. So detailed explanations we would be now giving about the cooler and maybe perhaps the silent barter. We are referring to economic exchanges. Balanced reciprocity. Don't be baffled with the names of the tribes and all. Behind each of those examples, we have good amount of stories to talk about. May I talk? Veddas of Sri Lanka, sir. Vedda is a tribe of Sri Lanka. With a single letter, things will change. Vedda of Sri Lanka. Okay? And Velda, this is from Africa. So don't consider that it's a spelling error. If at all you come across this name, don't think the typist had done something wrong. Velda is an African tribe, Vedda is a Sri Lankan tribe. I'm sure you'd enjoy Vedda, so I would start with them. I'll give you a situation. Can I go? Can I go? I'll have to control myself from talking when you're writing. Difficult task. Don't get me wrong for the kind of examples, for the kind of questions that I ask. I am a very humble person, so you are this. Okay? Your sister. Don't get me wrong. Your sister. Acha, in those symbols that I have given, did I give something like this? Suppose I put like this. This is an unmarried cohabitation or some kind of extramarital, premarital relationship. It is not a formalized one. So, for example, you see your sister with somebody else. What do you do? What do you do? The question is for the boys here. What do you do? You found them delicate. What do you do? Found them in a delicate situation. So, I mean, अब इतना मैं क्या? What do you do being a brother? That was obvious. Okay, fine. And what do you do? You don't want to answer? Shiva. Okay. And? Ma? You try to formalize the relationship based on, maybe you inquire about the boy. And what else? That's one kind of a response. You formalize the relationship, and because it's rather informal now, so you try to make it this. Or maybe, no, not you fellow. Kind of. I have somebody else better off. That is one. Anything else? You're upset with me that I asked this question about your family? Or you are wondering, how did you know this happened with us? And I was this. What do you do? Being a brother. That's all. So soft spoken you are. You call him gentleman, and then you sit across the table on a cup of coffee, and then you say, okay, bhaiya, what is this kind of? And then you solemnize wedding so softly, not a single bitter word to the sister and to the gentleman involved. So polite people you are, cold-blooded. That's all. I take you all as gentlemen, thorough gentlemen. God bless you all. If this was a situation in Veda, you know what they have to do? You know what they have to do? If a brother sees this happening, all three have to commit suicide. All three have to commit suicide. And if you were a Veda in the contemporary world, you would pretend as if you haven't seen anything. You would simply have a blind eye towards them, and they also pretend as if nothing has happened. Kind of. Now, the other side of the Vedas, I have given this example so that you would never forget the name Veda. The cultural variable relationship in a problem. If you find a situation, what you do, kind of. But then that is not the context here. The context of Veda is, Veda are actually the ironsmith, the Vedas are actually the hunting community. They are the hunting community who require iron implements. They are the hunting community requiring iron implements. They have a relationship with the blacksmiths of the mainstream Ceylon, mainstream community. These people are hunter-gatherers. They want iron implements from the blacksmiths in the villages. But the problem is, the Vedas are not allowed into the villages in the broad daylight. We have several such things in ancient India as well, where certain communities were not allowed to enter the village in the broad daylight. For example, there was this caste in Hinduism called Nishada. Nishada was that community. Nishada was that caste which was not allowed to enter the village in the broad daylight, because they would form a shadow. They would form a shadow, and they are untouchables by shadow. Their shadow is not supposed to fall on you, otherwise your purity would be lost. So they are allowed to enter the village only in the night, or maybe in the mid-afternoon, where you are not casting a shadow. So if you understand that, this is easy to understand. Vedas, being hunters, are not supposed to enter the village in the broad daylight. In the night, the exchange happens in such a silent, secret way. Whenever you would want to collect some kind of iron implements, this blacksmith would get an indication. You would actually deposit your hunt there and pick up the iron implements. So it's actually an exchange that is happening, exchange which is balanced. They are giving their hunt for getting the iron implements for hunting. Meaning you have relationship even with the enemies, even with the people you don't work with. For example, you see the other one called silent barter. You have silent barter. Those are the two tribes from Indonesia. The tribes of Indonesia, Semang and Sakai tribes, enemy tribes. They have a silent barter, like wife and husband, the enemies. No? Marriage is the only institution where you live with your enemy. So much of animosity there. So much of animosity, bitterness. Simang and Sekai, they are the enemy tribes. But then they have a relationship, silent barter, balanced reciprocity. There is an exchange that goes on, whether that is blankets, whether that is agricultural food, whatever they are producing, they would exchange. But whenever there is an exchange, there is a peace. You wouldn't take your weapons there, but then you have a place that is fixed. You place all the items that you have got, they will place their items, you take and then quietly exit. It's as simple as that beautiful, that sweetest sugar that you get across the border. You hate them, but you need their sugar. Because you are the largest consumer of sugar, you need more than what you are producing, so you depend on them. Cross-border sugar. You have the other people there. I would here want to talk about, of course, Kung Bushman and Swan or Bantu. T is silent there. Bantu you must have heard. Bantus are one of the small populations of Africa. They are the pygmoid people. These two also have exchanges. They exchange buffaloes, blankets, and all that kind of stuff. But then I'm not getting so deep into them because we still have time to talk about the Bantus, etc. Here you understand that they have also this balanced reciprocity of items such as food items traded for non-food items. So whatever, the hunt that these people get and the wild buffaloes, wild bison as we call, bisons they catch hold of, they try to trade with the Bantus for items like blankets. But then they have a quantification of them. Like, one bison for 10 blankets. The quantity is based on the valuation that you come up with. I'm more interested today to talk about the Kula. Just have a look at this picture. Maybe able to make out certain stuff there. She's holding something like shell garlands or something. We'll have to narrate this particular story of the Kula. Before I go to the Kula there, look at this one. Related to Kula, that's actually a small boat which you call canoe, C-A-N-O-E, canoe. Canoes are those small boats. And those are some men and a whole lot of water out there. So that's where we'll have to give a story. We are talking about balanced reciprocity, and the example that I have picked up is Kula. If you're all good, I'll take on that. Can I? Yeah? Heard of this man? Malinowski. I am giving the first name of the society that he had studied, called Trobriand Islanders. Trobriand Islanders. Trobriand is a group of islands in Oceania region. If you look at your map, you have New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, New Guinea. Just above Australia, you have the right half of New Guinea, that is called Papua New Guinea. If you go above Papua New Guinea, there are groups of islands, that whole group of islands. And out of those group of islands are these people living called Trobriand Islanders. Big group of islands is there. And you must have heard of islands like Fiji, they all fall there. British Samoan Islands, American Samoan Islands. One group is called Trobriand Islands. The story goes like this. Sir, many times what you do in your life, which might give you a lot of name in life, must have come because of an accident you didn't plan for. You didn't plan that you would become that, or you should try for it. Something triggered in your life, you were forced to do it rather. When he became the first man to lay his foot on the moon, when the group was going, he must not have planned that I would be the first one to put my step on there. It so happened that way. The second was never remembered. Only the first one was remembered. That was a mere accident. Going till there was a plan. But after that, when they were getting out onto the moon, who would go first? That was not planned rather. It just happened. Or for that matter, Malinowski, when he became an anthropologist, he didn't plan. It just so happened. I must have told you this. This was a man that was influenced by Fraser. Fraser, you know, what was the book? The Golden Bough. Malinowski had studied mathematics, he studied physics, he studied geography. He had fallen sick on the bed, reads the Golden Bough, gets inspired. Then he thought, okay, I would study this discipline. He did his bachelor's. Then he goes to Australia for the field work. He actually was a German-Austrian. By birth he was a German-Austrian, though he belonged to the British School of Anthropology. He studied in Britain, British School of Anthropology, but then he originally was a German-Austrian. So when he went to Australia, and that was a time, a thick war time between the Germans and the British. The World War was about to break out. He was there in Australia. When the World War broke out, he was seen as somebody from the non-British community. And hence he was also confiscated along with the other people. He was supposed to go to the jail for the confinement, but then anthropology saved him. Because he was an anthropologist and the British loved anthropologists, what they said was that you need not be in the confinement. You can do your work, but the thing is you cannot get out of this particular region till everything settles down. So for 2 years and more, he was almost confined to that region. He was in an open jail, didn't have anything to do except the field work. That was how whatever field work that he had done was not because he had planned for something, but it happened just like that. It's like anthropology optional in your case. You ended up taking an accident. And the accident that was so costly, becoming so costly. Now, that is actually the background of what he was doing in Australia. Now, in Trobriand region, when he was there, he was actually initially trying to study the Trobriand Islanders from a distance. He was with the British officers, used to go visit. and then come back, stay in the British guest house, whatsoever, but then it was not gelling well. Having taught by Boas, he thought that, okay, I should go a little closer to the people. So he starts staying among the people there. That's where we see him indulging in participant observation.